He said to me, I built companies like you. He liked working with someone who is hungry like that. A small shop is going to take care of him really good. He really got me off the ground. Officially started the business 15 years ago, and then 11 years ago is when I went full time.
Okay.
Doing it. So,
yeah. And when you started that, did you know that you were going to be starting something? I mean, what did that look like?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for some time. I'd worked in manufacturing and all different types of manufacturing, from injection molding to gauge building, learning how to do CNC programming, and eventually actually running machines, and getting a taste of all these different aspects of manufacturing, and then having experiences like working somewhere where things are being done a certain way, and you're thinking to yourself, man, if we just did this, it would be so efficient. It could be so much better, and couldn't quite get there. And it kind of sparked the idea, like, man, I should be doing something like this myself.
And what did that first step look like? I mean, was this something where you just you flipped on a switch one day and walked into work?
No. So if I can give a little bit on, I didn't grow up understanding entrepreneurship, owning a business. I was a missionary kid, and so it wasn't even on the horizon. I didn't know anybody. My parents never talked about it. And it was in college, I was trying to do a little bit of side hustle. I was mowing some lawns, and I thought, man, I had a Honda Civic, and I'm cramming my grandpa's mower in the back of the Honda Civic, driving places and mowing people's lawns. It was crazy. But I $10 here, $15 there. I thought, man, if I had 10, 15 more lawns, I wouldn't need to go to a job during the day. And people talked me out of it, and I didn't do it. But
and that was at the very beginning.
Right. But that was the first time my brain was saying to me, I want to hustle.
Yeah.
I want to go do something and do it myself. And so as time went on, I kind of started to refine it, and I started doing exclusively, design work and manufacturing, and then a little bit of machining on the side. And that's when I started my business in 2011, and I was getting projects, and then I was doing them, at night.
Okay.
There's a friend that lives up north of here, and I would rent his space on his machine,
okay,
and I would run parts on it. And so that kind of built that slowly, and I was doing maybe $30,000 a year in work. It was giving me the experience, and meeting deadlines, and especially because I was doing it after hours. It was in that time. Then I had built up to that point. I bought my first machine. It's a $130,000 machine, and a bunch of stuff to go with it. And so here I'm making payments on this machine, and I'm still employed, and I'm working at night, working a lot. And it was something my wife and we actually were praying, okay, almost like I need a sign here. It's time to leave employment. And we've been praying about that for a while, but I was just looking I didn't have consistent enough work, to just walk away from employment yet. And I had contacted somebody who, it was at JR Automation, and they connected me with the guy at their place that outsourced their work.
Okay.
And so this guy named Casey sent me a package to look at, and I looked at it. I gave him a price. He said, all right, I'm gonna let you can do that job. So I did the job. Actually took some vacation time from my work and got the job done, and then delivered it. He looked it over. He said, I'm gonna send you another one. So he sent me another one, did that job, about 3 days worth of work. I delivered it to him, and he said, you know what? I'm going to send you a job like this every week. And he said to me, I build companies like you. He liked working with someone who is hungry like that. A small shop is going to take care of him really good.
Yeah.
And he really got me off the ground.
How long did that period last where it was, you found that partner out there, and you built that trust? What did that period look like?
To build trust?
Yeah.
I mean, that was in a 2 to 3 week period right there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, part of it is just having, I guess, if you're real with people and you talk with them.
Yeah.
And I guess he very quickly trusted me.
Yeah.
Maybe we were somewhat of a kindred spirit,
you know,
in how we interacted. But he gave me prints, and I made parts that were to print, and they looked good. And he looked at that, and the price was in line with what he wanted.
Timing was good.
And so right away, that's the second one, which was, the parts, you could tell I was being tested, the parts I was making. And I was able to make all the parts correct, quality, for the price, on time. And so I've found in my experience, it doesn't take very long to build trust with someone if you do that and build it well.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that we look for here is someone that, is going to come in and want to work together with who we are here as a team. We have 6 machines in the shop. There's a guy working over here on this machine. Another guy's working over here on this machine, and this guy goes away, but that machine comes to a stop. This guy will probably check in on it and see if it's something easy he can just get going.
Yeah.
It's not, we're individuals, but it's finding ways to work together and keeping things running. And, we are a job shop, and so the hustle is still important. And I was looking to hire a young guy.
Is that your first hire?
It would have been about the third.
Okay.
Third, yeah. And that he was 18 years old, came in. Actually, he was wearing earbuds when he came in to talk to me, which is like, okay, I'm gonna give him a shot, all right?
Yeah.
I should have told him when he left. Next time you come and talk to someone, don't have earbuds in. It's just
Yeah.
I remember his hat was kind of pointed up this direction too. It's just like, okay, it's a different generation now. But we started asking him questions, and he didn't have a lot of interest. And I had one of my guys. I actually learned this from one of the guys that works for me. Ask him some questions, and he actually asked him what do you like to do for crafts or hobbies, or and the only answer was video games. And like, okay, you do something with your dad, like work on cars? Nope. And then the guy who works for me, Todd, asked him, like playing with Legos as a kid, building stuff? And he said no, he never did.
Interesting.
And after the interview, Todd looked at me and said, that's going to be a lot of work. Because he's like, I think Todd said it to me, my son's Judah. He said, if you ask Judah in a few years, hey, Judah, why don't you weld me up a trailer? He's not going to say, I don't know how to build a trailer, Dad. He's going to say, I don't know how to weld, because he hasn't learned that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been playing with Legos. He knows how to build a trailer. You need a frame, you need a deck, you need an axle, you need wheels.
Yep.
It's such an amazing building block for life.
Yeah.
And so I've incorporated that, learned from, Todd there, like, that's a great question to ask people, because it really teaches you a lot about the things that, whether you did puzzles or Legos or Lincoln Logs or you name it, but these things that build, take your hands and your brain and you create stuff. It's such a valuable thing to go through in your young years.
So success versus failure, you touched on, that was probably your third or fourth hire. I'm assuming you didn't hire him.
I did not, no.
How many people have you hired that didn't make sense, and how long did it take you to figure that out?
I would say I've only hired one person that didn't make sense.
Okay.
And it got to a place where I think we were both on the same page with it.
Okay.
And then he chose to go on and do something else.
Okay.
And it, one of the goals and desires was that if we grew to a certain size, he probably would have done more on the management side of things, and he would have been very gifted at that.
Okay.
But on the machining side, it just wasn't his thing.
So as you were kind of navigating everything, you're navigating yourself at the same time. You mentioned already that you kind of know that you're not good at certain things. Mm-hmm. How critical is that to your success?
It is critical to know who you are.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example is when it comes to the finance side of it, I do my payroll.
Mm-hmm.
I quote everything. I take my invoices or send my invoices and deposit checks and that sort of thing. But at that point, there's kind of a line, and then I pay my accountant to do anything beyond that.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
They're very good at what they do. They make sure that every tax is getting paid. They're making sure things are balanced. All those things are correct. A friend of mine years ago, runs a big company, had said, focus on what you're good at and get passable at your weaknesses.
Yeah.
Right? Don't get good at your weaknesses. You're wasting time because it's a weakness. You can get passable with it. So that's an example, right? I don't like doing any of the accounting.
Yeah.
But I can do the things I need to where I don't have to hire somebody. But then I just rely, I have a bill with the accounting firm and they take care of all those details. So I think it's evaluating all those things in your business of where you are weak and, what are your strengths, and then filling that gap of where you're weak with someone that can do that role.
Okay. Yeah. So Has there been a big mistake that you had to overcome?
I mean, I've made some, I call it big mistakes even in the last 4 months.
Okay.
We're doing some new work
Okay.
in the last 7-8 months here, and I think one of the things I struggle with, and I'm very optimistic about things, and I want to tackle and do something new and deliver to people, and just realizing sometimes my ability to fully assess something, especially if it's new and we haven't really done it before,
Mm-hmm.
and relying too much on just me and not getting in enough of the experience of the other people around here, just to make sure I know what I'm getting into. And yes, we're indeed going to be able to do that. So we've had some headaches from that. I shouldn't say it's a big mistake. We've worked through it and we've come out of that.
Okay.
And we've come out much stronger now.
Yeah.
Really refined our process, and we know exactly, how to get from here to there with that process. Because it's like I've machined, self-employed for 11 years, and I've done machining beyond that, 6-7 years before that. And then all other aspects of manufacturing before that, so 30 some years. And to realize, I wasn't good enough at something at this point, that was very humbling.
Yeah.
Wow. I was sure I had that dialed in and figured out. And it's a good dose of humbling there.
Yeah.
So it's one of the things I review with the guys and talk about it, asking them what they want to do. I've told them all, if you ever get to the place where you do want to start a business, let me know. We'll have to figure it out if it's a competing business.
Yeah.
That's tricky. I said, but I had people help me do it, and I want to be able to help people figure out what they want to do.
That's fantastic. So you're saying that you're willing to help people,
even if it was a competing business, as long as we're going to have a code of honor between us.
Yeah.
I did that when I left. I worked at Eagle Design here in Zeeland, and Bruce, the owner, is a great guy. I shook his hand when I left there, and I said, I won't ever go after one of your customers.
Yeah.
Even though I could have, I knew all the customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there were a few maybe that didn't send work there anymore that ended up finding me.
Sure.
That was a little different. I didn't pursue them. So anyway, I think when you know your guys and what they want to do, it's like the guy I just hired in October. He is 18, and he's trying to figure out life.
Yeah.
So he was twiddling his thumbs, and I got talking to him like I need someone to run parts around for me. So he came and started doing that. Then he started sandblasting, and I said, "You want to work here full time?" So we figured it out, and he is. I said, "Here's the deal: you get 4 months down the road, and you're thinking to yourself, I think I want to go try automotive for a while or building. Let me know. I mean, that's fine. You need to figure out life. What do you want to do?"
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you the benefits for what this is, but maybe it isn't for you. So,
and I think that's so important, right? Because so many people, and I feel like even like I'm 35, I didn't know what I wanted to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
It took me a really long time to figure out where and why I was heading.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out I really like engineering, and I really like talking to people, and that equals recruiting, right?
Yep.
But couldn't have guessed it. Could never put my thumb on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so having somebody that's willing to be a guide and a mentor, no matter where you're at, partnering with you when you're stepping in on day one. So I read a statistic recently. It was like over 50% of people are willing to take a reduction in pay to know where they're heading. So, you're running a small business. You've got a successful group of people here that trust you. You probably didn't know you were going to be here when you were 25. And I know you were going to push around lawnmowers and different things like that. But what would you tell yourself? Like, let's run back 25 years. How old are you right now?
52.
52. So 27 years ago. Where were you? And what would you tell yourself?
Buy some good rental income property.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, dang it. I always maybe smirk a little bit at the idea of telling myself, my younger self, because knowing my younger self, I wouldn't listen. So what good will it do? But for the sake of that, I think the fact that I had the desire to to do the side hustle. And it just led to, it was an unusual path that I had, but I worked in a lot of different areas. I think it worked out great, and it worked out in its timing. You know,
Yeah.
Now, it would have been interesting if it could have happened sooner, but the pieces along the way, just I worked in an injection mold shop. Well, actually, before that, I was doing 3D printing in the 90s.
Okay.
Before it was 3D printing.
Really?
Yeah. Eagle Design here in Zeeland had big SLA machines. They were $1 million machines.
Okay.
And I was the rapid prototyping manager at the time. And that's where I got to learn how to quote things. So my whole path just had all these different moments of getting a taste of how to do this role. And I could not have chosen that and planned that out probably better than the way it worked out. Because I went from that place, went to work in an injection mold place where I learned how to program machines. Well, I thought I did, but I learned how to run the software. The next place, I actually ran the machines and realized I didn't know how to program. And so then I refined my programming ability. And then I went to a fixture and gauge shop, learned a lot about GD&T, which is just key for what we're doing today with this defense stuff. And then went back to one of my previous employers, and eventually was running their machining area. And there I got to run 5-axis. So here I am, at this point, this is in 2010 through 2014, and I'm getting opportunities to do things that are very expensive to learn.
Mm-hmm.
To pay to learn it is expensive. To get into it without experience, and then you're going to go through the school of hard knocks learning it, like 5-axis. So being paid, an hourly rate to run that machine and learn how to run it, it's a good way to learn it.
Yeah.
And so I got that opportunity. All these different things that led, and I use all of those. So I have a hard time. I really have a hard time with what I would tell myself in that regard. Other than what I said about, I think maybe doing a little bit better with on my financial planning side of it, those kinds of things. But with my business, the steps have gone. You mentioned something earlier about success and failure. I've always believed that failure is the best. It's the best at teaching you.
Yeah.
And I am, the story of Peter and Jesus, and Peter in the boat, and he jumps out to walk to Jesus, and then he starts sinking because he gets scared. He realized he's walking on water. That story, I connect with it because it's exactly what I do. I jump out of the boat and just start walking. And then it's like, crap, I can't, I got to figure this out,
Yeah.
or I fall on my face in some situations because I didn't maybe plan it out as well. But the amount that I've learned and grown out of it has been incredible. I tell my kids failure is the best thing in life. It comes back to so many people never get there because they don't try.
Because they're afraid of
I will try. Everything comes across my path.
Yeah.
Not to the point where you're going to lose tens of thousands of dollars over it, but it's like if you dabble in it, you're going to start to understand it. And
yeah,
I was always that way. So, these things just lended themselves to what built my journey. And yeah.